Hello, welcome to Ffilm Crack Craic with me, Stanley Knife, and him.
Christ. Swiss Army Man.
There we go.
Um,
Have you seen that, by the way?
no.
You should.
That's kind of like, isn't that like a kind of it's a reworking of like Weekend at Bernie's, but with Harry Potter.
Kind of. It's a lot stranger than you might think. They definitely
Mhm.
wouldn't have got it made if Daniel Radcliffe hadn't agreed to be in it, I think.
Right.
Or they
Okay.
wouldn't have had a sufficient budget to pull it off.
Right.
You should check it out. It's kind
Okay.
of interesting, yeah. Um, anyway, we're not talking about
Hmm.
that today.
No, no. In fact, we never do this, even though virtually everything we do should come with trigger warnings. But maybe for once I will say, uh, you know, trigger warnings for tentacles, sexual assault,
Yeah.
all kinds
Well,
of other
trigger
grossness.
warnings for this pod as well, because at any point while reminiscing, me or Nick might suddenly start knocking one out. Just below the screen
Just
here.
off
Yeah.
screen.
So just to be warned, that could
Okay.
happen if we get
So are we
excited.
here? Here's a question. So I hadn't seen any of these before.
Okay,
This was all new to me.
you're on
And
there.
I assume we're probably going to do the anime first, just because it chronologically comes first.
Yes.
Although I in fact I think it's the more interesting piece.
Right. No, I agree.
As we get through. But anyway, um, okay. So yes. So anime first.
Yeah. So
Um,
not I don't think based on a
a
manga.
manga.
Right? I think
Okay.
and actually it's quite confusing from the credits. There doesn't seem to be like a straight up and down screenwriter credit for any of these, but it seems
Okay.
to be planning is maybe this guy Kotaro Ran is the guy I often see. It seems to be the name that comes up as like I don't know, the guy who decided to do this, or it's
Right.
concept, or and then
Mhm.
original story supervisor. This is over at animenewsnetwork.com. You got Yukihiro Makino, who's a more familiar name, but there doesn't seem
Okay.
to be just a straight who wrote this, and there isn't like a manga directed by Kaninari Tokiwa, right?
Mhm.
But clearly it's in. So I suppose a little bit of background for less sleazy people than us.
Mhm.
But again, difficult to do it because we did this because soon we're going to do a Japanese Cthulhu mythos show,
Yes.
literary as feck, right? And
Mhm.
there's an essay in one of those. Have you ordered those books, by the way? Are they on the way?
Oh, okay. Thanks for reminding me. Yes,
Yeah.
will do.
Um,
Yeah.
and there's an essay in one of those about well, kind of the interesting. So it seems as if it's caught up somehow. You get the Lovecraft Cthulhu mythos enters Japanese culture, and there's definitely a point where that becomes tentacle
Hmm.
porn
Yes.
hentai
Yeah.
and anime, right? And I suppose, I mean, I can almost guarantee you there's some man who hasn't seen daylight for the past 40 years, who, if they see this and understands English, will be able to correct us that no, there's an earlier proto manga from
Hmm.
1974 that But
Yes.
basically, the perceived wisdom is
Mhm.
that it's Toshio Maeda and Urotsuko Doji is
Right.
the granddaddy of the
This stuff.
tentacle anime hentai
Yeah.
stuff, right? Which is there's a lot more of it out there than you might think.
Yes. Yes. Well, as one of the reviews of this points out, they were kind of stunned that this set of four. So we're initially talking about a set of four episodes, totally 180 minutes total. So each one's about 40, 42, 43 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Um,
The Angel of Darkness we're talking about,
yes.
or Inju Kyoshi,
Gee.
uh, actually
Mhm.
at some point might have been called Torture King. in English as well,
Okay.
like a bootleg title.
I feel like I know the term Inju maybe from like Hagane no Renkin Jutsushi or Full Metal Alchemist. I have a feeling that that's like maybe so
Yeah,
this is
I
obviously
mean,
like a
Inju in itself is what like
it's like a demon
beast
or
or
something.
demon. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You can use it in polite conversation without
Okay.
just thinking
Right.
someone's going to go like, yeah,
That's what I thought.
yeah.
So, but anyway, this reviewer was surprised that obviously this was popular enough as anime to again get a live action remake because not I don't think a lot of this stuff like did, right? I mean, I know
Well,
that
so yeah, well, so specifically because I think this is important because I think this is why this exists. Is so
right,
there's an even I think it's is it early? I think there's a yeah, I think it's earlier. So even before the Angel of Darkness anime, there's La Blue Girl, right?
right.
Which is another big um hentai anime
Mhm.
title. They're good. I like the La Blue Girl.
I saw them many years. I don't remember
Yeah.
much, but
But if you really want to get into the minutiae of this stuff, I suppose that's slightly different as well because that's a bit more like this. Angel of Darkness largely takes place in the real world but La Blue Girl's a bit more like with like fairies and shit, isn't there? There's a little
yeah.
bit of that
Although
in here in the first.
that's what, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd like to talk about that.
Yes. I'm surprised it didn't go further because that's La Blue Girl is a lot more in that.
Vein. Okay.
Yeah, and if I remember, yeah, the lead character is like some sort of fairy or something. But I remember them being pleasantly, yeah, good fun.
Well,
And
there's a lot. I mean, funnily enough, we're going to be talking about this later on in one of the other shows, but there was a lot of that kind of fairy based sex manga, and a
yeah,
lot of it
yeah,
did
yeah,
end up translated like Fantagraphics or well, their Eros line
yeah,
brought a lot of that stuff to America and translated it into English. There was bondage fairies. There was a
yeah.
bunch of that stuff.
Elves as well, and it even we'll talk about this as well when it crosses over into live action. But like, there's a couple of like elf themed porn films starring our favorite Mizunare doing what she normally does, except she has elf
Of
ears.
ears,
So yeah, like it's just you
different
gotta
strokes,
wonder like who specifically wants to see an elf being face fucked. Well, someone does, right? Like
evidently.
it was like
Well,
yeah,
there's that.
quite
What do they call that? The rule something. It's one of those things about like if somebody's thought of it, then there is
yes,
pornography.
yeah. It's
Uh,
fascinating to me though
it
that there's
exists.
them when they're just at home trying to jack off. It's not quite. Ah, the elf ears, yes,
No, no, it
yes.
works. You need to look
Oh, good.
more like Orlando Bloom, who I believe loves you. I seem to
Ah,
remember
good.
a big fan of
The
yours.
old pal Orlando. Um,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, so
La Blue Girl.
mhm.
Just prior to this, La Blue Girl is turned into
Okay,
the Inju Gakuen series, right?
okay,
Known as Sex Beast on Campus
okay.
or La Blue Girl live action. And I think there's four of those. And I think the first one comes out,
And I assume these were straight to video,
yes, yeah,
right?
just before. So then I guess, so Pink Pineapple, who did the original anime, they decided to jump on the band and they decided to do the live action ones.
Adaptations,
They
yeah.
almost start straight after Sex Beast on Campus. You get the
Okay.
Yukioshi Sex Beast Teacher, Obscene Beast start almost the same year, the next year, their own 5-part. But yeah, but first we're talking about the 4-part anime, which I'd never seen before, oddly enough. I'd seen the first 3 of the live actions,
Okay.
but I'd never actually seen the anime before, and I realized this was a glaring hole in my film education.
Right.
What?
Quite a few glaring holes.
Yes.
This
Oh,
series,
very
to be
good.
honest.
Yes.
Um,
You've never seen Citizen Kane and never seen Angel of Darkness. Um,
yeah. So, what's this all about then, Clive?
yeah. Who wants to?
Unpack this.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Who wants to own up first? Like who's? Um, yeah.
well,
So
I'll tell you. This is. I'll tell you. I wrote this down. I said actually quite well animated and scripted.
oh, it is.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I thought more thought out and more considered than the live action adaptations. In a lot of ways. Really solid music. In fact, very kind of goblin-esque, kind of like thumping.
Right.
Uh, um, and there's this concept which you've already mentioned that's not revisited in any of the sequels, anime sequels, or any of the live actions of what appear to be Noddy and Big Ears, who
Right.
are a very hentai version of them. Yeah, there's this weird fairy goblin stuff going on the outskirts of this one that
Yes.
totally not in any of the ones later on, but
Yeah.
definitely
I
piqued my
suspect.
curiosity quite strongly.
Yeah, I suspect. Well, you should check out that Mizunare.
Clearly.
Um, yes. My guess again, without being an expert in this stuff, and again, that man who hasn't seen daylight for 40 years is
Mm.
laughing at us. It's like, no, no, the origin for this is the
Mm.
one-off, doujinshi from 1981. But I
Almost
think
certainly
from
it's
La Google. I think this is a La
right.
Google influence. Yeah.
But how much of this is just Gona guy? I feel like you look back through what he's done, and so much of the seeds of everything that's wrong with what happens in the 80s and 90s is in some 70s sketchy little 4 panels in something that Gona guy did. Um,
Yeah.
there are parts later on where there are parts later on in some of these animations. There's one where like in one of the later episodes where somebody gets absorbed into the body of somebody, their face is kind of just hanging in the darkness. It's right out of
Right.
Devilman. Like,
Right. No, no, no. Definitely. Obviously there's a lot of streams running into this, right?
yes.
Whereas Angel of Darkness, like I said, isn't. I don't know. It's interesting. So again, for those who don't know, it's specific. We should nail this down and say exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about Tentacle Pond. We are talking about um, usually demons of some kind.
Hmm.
Sometimes female, sometimes male, sometimes hermaphroditic, and
Hmm.
uh, they do have phallic-like tentacles
Hmm.
that enjoy fight,
Violating.
finding and violating nubile young
Hmm.
orifices,
Yes.
um, vaginally, anally, orally,
Hmm.
all over the shop. Um, and
Well, and
and
in
the
this,
thing that's interesting is again, just to we nail it out, just in case anyone, oh, that's what it is. But also specifically, the reason that's kind of culturally specific, I think, is as well, is it circumvents the um
yes,
the uh the censorship, the mosaic censorship that you can't show like
actual male
penises, yeah,
genitalia.
even
Yeah.
in anime, right?
Yes.
Which is
Yeah.
bizarre to me because it's when it crosses the line into like it's like okay, so that's a fake. You've drawn a fake.
Hmm.
It's not a real penis, it's a drawn
Hmm.
thing, but that's unacceptable. We have to mosaic that. This exactly penis-shaped tentacle,
Hmm.
except it's a bit knobbly or something, but it's not a penis.
Hmm.
That's fine.
Fine. Yes.
Doing all the things that penises do, and it's squirting a
Hmm.
seminal-like fluid,
Hmm.
and that's fine. You don't have to. You don't have to cover that up with a mosaic.
Yes.
So this is
So
all fascinating to me, and
yeah.
we should mention as well that we did see an uncensored version anyway. So it's
Yes.
a moot
Yeah.
point.
So
So we can
obviously
get
produced for yes
yeah.
the
And
export market.
obviously, well, it's one of the ones I think it might. I don't know. I think it's an early example, isn't it? Because they ran into trouble because at a certain early on, I think when they were drawing the things in, they decided, well, people are never going to see this, so they didn't do detail, right? So
Yeah.
famously, they didn't add pubic hair. So then, when the things played uncensored outside Japan,
Yeah.
they became even more problematic because, especially because a lot of the characters are young women. There's no
Yeah.
pubic hair, so there's
And
the extra added. Oh, are
the
they?
school settings don't help
Yes.
either, right? Yes.
So are
So
they actually? Yeah, are they actually prepubescent or underage or Um,
yeah,
so it became a bit more problematic in some territories uh, who worry about this
such things.
kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so that's when we at some point in all these things we're mentioning, there's going to be a demon with
Mhm.
cock-like tentacles
Yes.
raping. Mostly, it's all pretty much all girls, right? I think
Just
in
about, although I think maybe there might be things where it's I mean there are and in the live action versions there's definitely males who have bad things happen to them as well. Dicks
yes,
get bitten off and
yes,
all kinds of stuff.
yeah,
But I will say that this one really leans into the plant-based tentacle monster this series. Like they're
Hmm.
almost all kind of and I mean the live action adaptations sometimes it gets a bit more confusing. They really don't give a shit about creating a consistent lore or mythos here at all, I have to say, across the
No.
anime and even more so across the live action ones. But there's a lot of kind of like a Little Shop of Horrors was directed by somebody with a real problem. Um, you know, yeah, it was directed by Rick Moranis. There we go. Um,
Very good.
then it would be
Very
this.
good. How long have you been sitting on that one?
I had that's even better, Clive. Um, no, that was honestly that came to me in the moment. That's not written down on my crib notes of bad jokes. Um, yeah, so this the
If
first
only if it was, and you're just there every show, like, where can I fit it in? Ah,
fit this one in.
is it? Is this ready for my?
Um, so interestingly, like that, yeah, so this first one has stuff going on in it. As I said, that doesn't appear anywhere else. So we don't get these weird little naughty and big ears kind of characters anywhere else. We do seem to almost in all of them have some sort of like sadomasochistic scientist character, right? And it's in the
Yes.
first three episodes, they're two different people. In the
Yes.
first episode, it's somebody, and then the second episode, it's a different guy who I quite like actually. The guy in the second episode,
Yeah, I
um,
think he returns the second and
and he
third one.
and he's also in the third one as
Yeah.
well. His spirit inhabits some kind of weird black pearl thing, and then he's able to reincarnate. But he's great because he's got horrible kind of scoliosis, and he kind of like leans over. And when he finally mutates into a thing, he's got these awful teeth that kind of
Yes.
flap around. And then I think, I suspect one of the bigger influences on this from a Lovecraftian place is actually Stuart Gordon and Brian Yuzna's films. I
Yeah,
see
maybe
quite
so.
a lot
Yeah.
of The Reanimator and From Beyond in the more in the animated versions even than in the movies. I think in the
Right.
live action movies, they're actually going to other places. We'll talk about that when we get to them for their inspiration. But
Yes.
here,
He's
I
very
see a
Urban West,
lot.
isn't he? This character. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Herbert West mixed with the Dean, right? Because there is, in
Right.
fact, an awful scene of him like going down on a girl with these flappy teeth things. That's in many ways, yeah, to me, it seems like a real nod towards that famous scene in Reanimator. And
Yeah,
then
no,
in
no, good call. I reckon there's definitely something to that. And I also wonder if there was like if we're talking about different waves, so like there's the initial wave of people who got into Lovecraft, and then that 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 entered this like generational thing, and then at some point suddenly turned someone had the idea of turning the tentacles phallic, and then again when Reanimator and that stuff came out and reintroduced people to Lovecraft again, if that
mhm.
like yeah
But
deep
Lovecraft with this
no, that's what I mean.
psychosexual thing,
What I mean,
very specific to those
because
films.
because I think the ground was ready in Japan. So for instance,
Right.
because he'd already kind of had the glimmerings of this tentacle thing, and
Mm.
so then when Stuart Gordon
Yes. The
Bryan,
Tentacle Zeitgeist, I believe it was known
yeah,
as.
so when Stuart Gordon Bryan is going to do their kind of sexed up Lovecraft thing, that kind of that lands to a certain extent in the US, and there are other productions that start to, but it doesn't land. It lands on a very different, already
Mhm.
sexualized, like
Prime.
ready to. So then it goes
Well lubricated.
bananas. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, yeah. So I mean, as I said, in fact, there's so I guess we go. So that first one is kind of straight up just creepy
this is
scientist
this
guy.
is cultural archaeology we're doing. We're not just
Indeed.
wanking all day.
No,
No,
no.
it's like half the
Um,
day, and the other half's being all learned and reading books and shit.
so yeah, I think the first one's basically just sketchy scientist guy discovers this plant type of thing, right? Um,
Yeah, I mean,
he
I don't think we need to
yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
fill in. Yeah,
He goes
basically
ape
plant
shit.
it, and that's at
Yeah,
a woman's academy where they play
yes,
cross. Uh,
yes.
and then
Um,
so the second one is a different high school with new
yes.
girls, and
And
so
it's got the
there's a little bit of again. I think there's a little bit of Gorotsuko Doji here in the the boy who's ogling the girls in the gym and taking photos
Yes.
of the shower and stuff.
Yes.
That's and sees he's the guy who witnesses the wherever it is. Yeah, the guy who he runs a lab, right? He's got a lab.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, he's working with flat. So this one goes more. The first one was more elfy and
Yeah.
that stuff. This one's even more flowery. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
flowers with cocks coming out of it and
Yeah.
stuff in this one. Like it's very organic,
Well,
isn't it?
the rest of the next three all have, I think, quite this very strong flower theme.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, and there's a Haruka is she's our main character in this one. Um, and then she shows up in the fourth one, interesting enough, as a slightly older. She comes back as a
That's right.
professor.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So actually, episodes three, four, sorry, two, three, and four actually do have a sort of
They do.
semi-coherent connected
Certainly two
narrative.
and three do. Yeah, so the third one's at a women's college, and there's like tennis pros in this one,
Yes,
right?
yeah, that sleazy tennis coach or whatever,
Yes.
who, yeah, and he sleeps with a student who then is bullied by the other girls, right? So this is kind of the
Yeah.
bullying. This is the
Well, this is the
bullying.
one as well. It starts. There's a female antagonist in this one, right? It's the
Yeah.
lesbian school doctor, and she gets the, some is it the gym teacher or something under her
No, no,
control?
that's the episode four.
Oh,
So
is that four? Okay.
episode three is the one where it's the girl with glasses, and she's obsessed with the tennis coach guy, and the other
Yes.
girls hate her.
Oh, that's
And then
right. Yes. Yes. Okay.
so she gets bullied. There's a quite an intense scene where she's like in a toilet that comes straight out of stuff that would be made live action later on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Not that we know
wow.
anything about that.
No, thank God. And so yeah, and then so
The fact that you're lying
she
lends
ends
that,
up
thank God, a very dark.
she,
I'm glad I don't know anything about that.
well, yeah, who knows? So yeah, so this is the one where she ends up being seduced by this black pearl thing, which contains the spirit of creepy scoliosis
Yes.
scientist prof from the last film, and she ends up because in these ones they really lean into this whole idea that like the best thing to grow your plants, if you want to grow healthy and strong, beautifully stemmed, luxuriant foliage, um, ladies' juices
Teenage
apparently
touch is what you
are
need. Yeah.
that's what's needed. Yes,
Someone needs to tell Alan Tishmarch, and
yes, yeah.
this was
Well,
really liven up his shows. We,
but wait, maybe it's that. Is that what David Bellamy was always talking about, like rummaging through the undergrowth?
yeah, yeah, David Bellamy. I mean, if is he still about, or is he do a Jimmy Savile style
I'm not sure.
reckoning?
Expo, yeah.
But
Anyway,
Alan Tishmarsh, weirdly enough, was I can't remember the end of the story, so this is going to seem even more weird. But Alan Tishmarsh, like last year or something, turned up via BBC footage on North Korean television, but for some reason they digitally mosaiced his genes. But I can't remember why or if they ever got to the bottom of the story. But for some reason there was a story taken from about Alan Tishmarsh, everyone's favorite genial gardener who doesn't use teenage vaginal juice in his garden at all, I'm sure, unless Jimmy came around to visit, and that's a whole new Operation U Tree thing about to explode. And he was on North Korean TV, but for some reason they went out of their way to cover
Mosaic.
up the type of jeans he was wearing.
It wasn't just because he had obvious like camel toe or something like that, or
I don't think so. No, no, no. I'm not making this up.
No,
Listen, I don't know if you can have camel toe if you're a man, but
angina. It's known as, I believe.
how does it work? Where does the
I think it's just an awkward fold. But anyway,
is it between the bollocks or like what?
It must be. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think we need an series about this.
Clearly, 7-part series, please.
Yeah, so we can sort it out.
So yeah, so this case, she ends up basically making a deal to get back at her bullies by teaming up with sketchy scoliosis scientist from the previous one. But then he turns on her because he's a piece of shit, basically. And then in the end, yes, yeah. And so he ends up absorbing her boyfriend into his body, and then he absorbs her into
Yeah,
his.
yeah. So I couldn't quite figure that. Is she sticking out of him like Belial style,
It
or is
seems like
he
it.
like basically implanted? Is he just on his cock and just sticking out? Or I
It
couldn't.
feel it felt more to me like he literally
Yes,
had absorbed her whole
yes,
body,
me too.
and this
Although
was
the
part
latter
of
would
his
seem more
reincarnation
in keeping with the
with
series.
the
Yeah.
yes, yes, with the themes.
Yes.
Yeah, and in the end,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're defeated. But I guess we're to assume then that she doesn't survive because in the next one, the school. Oh, so there's also a school nurse, a lesbian school nurse, who is very attracted to our bullied girl and makes
Yes.
a pact with her. And in the next film, she becomes one of the lead antagonists because she has now apparently somehow saved this girl in plant form. Um, and then she's trying to, I guess, bring her back or
So
something.
this is the one at the private university with aerobics and gymnastics and stuff like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then Haruka, the blue-haired girl from episode 2, now comes back, but now she's a prof at the college,
Yes.
and she also, we should say, in episode 2, she in some sort of zoned out state invented the world's best weed killer, which is a glowing
That's right.
pink, the
Yes.
glowing pink thing,
Yes.
which kind of involved, yeah, and she uses it in episode 2, and now she comes back to use it in episode 4 again.
The other notable thing about this one as well, when we get to one of the injured characters, just in case any of you are missing, like, oh, this is all good and I'm enjoying, but there's no kind of there's nothing spunky on screen.
Mhm.
This is the one where the main beast guy like drools.
Oh
It's really,
God.
and the drool is very yeah,
Yeah,
seminal. Uh,
yeah, yes. So what's Ota? His name is, and what I quite like about Ota is he's got a horrible. I mean, everything about it is awful. He is straight up again out of From Beyond. He's got this awful long
yeah,
fucking
yeah,
neck,
yeah.
kind of like his head lolls around.
But he's always drooling this very
Oh yeah,
like drool.
spitting.
Look at
Yeah,
Nick there pretending he doesn't like it.
and then he also has his voice actor is top notch because
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
got a
yeah.
slight speech impediment maybe, or he's putting one on like a kind of a lisping,
Yes, yes.
drooling thing, and then he's like very like.
Is there an English dub of this? I wonder because we watched it
Don't know.
subtitled.
Yes, we
I'm
watched it too.
wondering.
Yeah,
I'm always fascinated by the English dubs especially this type of anime, right? Because
but I noticed that who that he is credited under his character name in the so whoever the actual voice actor was chose not to be in the end credits. I was watching. I was like, who is that? That guy's great. Like his performance is really good. And then I noticed, oh, it's like just Ota as Ota or whatever, or like
uh,
Ota played by Ota.
if
And I was like,
only
okay.
he would have known that all these years later he was in the running for a Nick, as I believe the
A Nick
subtitle
Award
came
for
out.
best
Yes, he
drooling
would have he would have
sleazy.
he would have fessed up, right?
So I'll say this. I mean, this one also has quite a weirdly beautiful ending where after they defeat the bad guys, oh yeah, there's this insane inferno at the end where the nurse character is everything's on fire. She's on fire. Creepy Ota guy's on fire, but he's just having sex with her in this flaming pile of like it's mad. And then we cut to this beautiful painted interior of like some sort of big warehouse with a piano in it and
Hmm.
like light kind of filtering through this window and this little seed hidden under and that's kind of our um so what I wanted to say was at the end of watching all four of them, a few things really stuck with me, unless you have something else you want to say.
Your pants for a start.
Yeah.
Before you get into that, I just to
Yes.
follow up, I checked it out on the Anime News Network. There is no English dub, it seems. At least there's no cast.
Hmm.
However, there is a Spanish dub
Ooh.
in which Mr. Ota is played by one J. Ignacio Latorre. So maybe you can give your reward to him.
Mm.
And there is
Okay.
also a German dub.
Okay.
I would quite like to watch this in German,
I
I think.
think that would be good.
Yes.
Yes. Um, so I think here's a few theories I have. I think no one told the background artists that they were working on porn, because I think their work is consistently breathtaking. Like,
No, but
like
I think you're
Studio friggin'
underestimating how
Ghibli.
serious they took this stuff, right? Like I think everyone's on board. They're not just making this a throwaway. Like I mean, it's typical Japanese service culture in general. Like whatever you
Right.
do, you
Do it
fucking
well.
do it properly, right? Like
Yes.
no matter what it is.
No, it's
You do it.
really and voiced. It's strongly well voice acted. It's well animated, and particularly the background paintings are consistently
Right.
amazing. But I had a question. So you're thinking about the dubbing artists. I want to know, do they send like Takeshi over to like Family Mart to buy little pour-in cups to just stick his finger in like for the sound Foley work? Because like I'm really wondering whose job it is to be like squitch, 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 because there's so much of that on the soundtrack. Um
Yeah, this
yeah.
fascinates me in general, actually. Even
But, you
like
know, you have like the
even the voices are you go into a booth and like you know you're there, you're doing your job, and then like a woman comes in and she does all the throes of ecstasy or being
Mhm,
raped, so just standing there and into a microphone. And then
mhm,
especially like if the voice actor happens to be hot as well,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And very, very good, Miss Yoshida, thank you very much. Like it must be a very kind of, oh, even for her, she's there just doing all
Yeah.
this, and she's clothed, but in some ways she's as vulnerable as some
Yes.
naked, right? In
Yeah.
what? So at what point do you do the? Well, I suppose, yeah, they do it here all the time. Where does that switch come from the professional to the personal?
Right.
Like you just
Yeah.
do it and then you go home, and but it's fascinating to me that you can even do that, or maybe you're not doing it
Well,
as well as you think, and you have all these weird things repressed and bubbling up, or not. Maybe it's yeah, it's fascinating to me.
but I think, I'm sure you've seen, like I did growing up, you'd watch like behind the scenes at the radio, and there'd be like the guy wubbing that thing to make thunder, or like the
Yes, that's right.
coconut,
That's
and
right,
the
Nick. I grew up in the 40s, so I watched
I I
behind
have
the
seen
scenes at the radio.
I have seen this. I don't know why I've seen this, but I remember clearly as a kid watching some show about how they did Foley
Yes, no,
work.
I know what you
Right?
mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or a guy with two shoes in a little like box of like gravel, like crunch, crunch, crunch. They still have radio in England. Fuck BBC, most of it's radio, isn't it? But anyway, I would love to know. I would love to see the Foley art table for one of these Angel of Darkness. Like what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that might be a thing. I mean, look for it on YouTube. It might actually be up there, right? Someone might have.
Right.
There might be a making of that was on the original disc or something, and someone's fan subbed it. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised, right? Um,
Hmm. Or are these things very well kept secrets that they don't want anyone to know what brand of Jello?
that is true. They in general here in Japan they can be a little bit protectionist,
Mhm,
as I know from experience. Um,
mhm.
but anyway,
Okay.
that's enough national stereotypes for one,
Yes.
and let's
Yes.
move on to yes, in 1995, the live action Angel of Darkness,
Mhm.
Inju Kyoshi, started. For some reason, this is listed over at IMDb as Inju Kyoshi Jishaban, but this is
Mhm.
nowhere to be seen on the. I don't know where they got this subtitle
Okay.
from. I have no idea. So there's five of these. They
Mhm.
outdid the anime. They did five of them.
Yep.
Three of which I'd seen before. I hadn't seen past four and five, but I don't think I'd ever seen any of them with English subtitles before.
Okay.
Not sure how much of a difference it
It
made, to be
makes.
honest with you. But yes, yeah. So this was interesting in so much. I mean, none of these are particularly good, I don't think,
Nope.
really.
Nope.
But it's interesting to watch a series kind of as they go along. Like, what'll we rip off this time?
Yes. Yes. The
Uh,
first one is the only one that actually feels a little bit like they're attempting to just do the original, you know,
yes.
yeah, animation, or some version of that,
Yeah.
and after that, they get
So
increasingly
this
far
series
from
is
art.
split between two directors as well. There's Mitsunori Hattori who did the first one, the third one. and is it the fourth one he did? Yeah, and then Atsushi Shimizu made the second and fifth one. And I think the Atsushi Shimizu ones seem to be the ones that are a little bit more ambitious in terms
Yes.
of the physical tentacle stuff. Like
Yes.
they try and do more with that, right?
Yes. Yes. Agreed.
Um, again from Pink Pineapple, who gave us the anime as well. So this first one takes place at they keep calling it a women's college. It's a school.
Clearly a
Yeah.
school. Yes. That's
In
because that's for reasons of again legality, I think.
maybe, yeah, okay.
Uh,
In Shibuya, and there's some girls who are moonlighting as hookers,
yeah.
and
Well, I mean,
they
so
wear
do you remember that term? Do you remember that
panties
term? That great term, compensated dating,
and
which is one of my,
Jokosai.
which is yeah, one of my favorite Japanese
Oh,
euphemisms for
phew. I thought,
teen.
thank God you didn't go pastimes then.
No, yeah, like yes. I mean, like what a great way to yeah, compensated dating to cover up yeah, teenage prostitution, which is what it actually was.
But the
But
weird thing about in this film, which I thought was slightly strange, is so the whole thing about Angel Korsai, I mean, is it's not just it's not just the dirty old men getting their hands on teenage girls. I mean, the uniform fetish is a very strong part of it. What I found peculiar about this film is when the girls go out to pick up guys in the evening, they wear street clothes.
yes,
They don't,
yes.
and you're thinking, no, 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 you don't understand this business model, do you? You're, you're going to get a lot more
Hmm.
traffic because that's what it's all about, right? Primarily. So I was wondering about this. Yeah, I don't know, or maybe this is again. Is this something that is this another culture? Because I reckon this might actually be weirdly authentic. I think maybe because the whole Enjo Kosai concept is relatively new at this point. So
Hmm.
maybe early on, maybe the schoolgirls who are going out, maybe they were not dressing in their uniform. And
Right.
then someone had the brainwave, hang on, we can probably fucking triple our business at least if we just go out straight from school in our uniforms, right?
Right. Although the funny thing about, oh, not funny thing about that, but like, so the thing that really struck, rang true to me was because I have, um, because I know people who worked in Japanese girls' schools, right?
Mm.
Is that male homeroom teachers were sometimes sent out to places like Shibuya to literally trawl the streets to look for
Oh yeah.
girls
Oh
from
yeah.
their school to go give them a bollocking and send them back
Oh yeah. They
to
didn't just make this shit up. I mean, it is.
yeah. So that whole kind of like the nice guy homeroom teacher, right, who ends up
Mm.
becoming the one who becomes the slavering tentacle, monster later on. He he did seem like a very real character to me in this. In fact, one review I read of this said something that I think is kind of true. It would have been maybe more interesting if he was the main character, and if we dug in a little bit more into how he felt about going from being this relatively benign, maybe hapless,
Mm.
homeroom teacher with his heart in the right place to, but they don't really deal at all with like whatever he's going through emotionally or whatever about this
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't really understand what he is really from this film. Like the anime had all this stuff with elves and a tree and
plants
seeds
and
and plants. I
and we
don't.
and we get into that from it in the next one. We do bring it back to that kind of it's a
Yeah,
spore
but the
planting.
first one we don't know what the fuck it is.
No,
But he's just
no.
inexplicable. So this is Seiko Senno as well, who plays Mr. Is his name? Yeah, his name is Mr. Tojo, isn't it? I think.
Yes.
Yes. Who was the star of the tokusatsu show uh Chojinki Metalda.
Okay.
He was Metalda.
Wow. So he's
Yes.
slightly come down in the world, I guess, by this point,
Yeah,
or
and
up the world, depending.
so the other thing that's interesting about this is maybe something you probably would have suspected, but you might not have been able to figure out because almost all of the girls or the young women in the series are now totally forgotten former porn stars.
Right.
Like, and it's quite difficult to like. You'd think you'd look them up and they'd pop up. Oh yeah, but actually, some of these took quite a bit of digging for me to confirm. I mean, it's hard work, but someone's got to do it.
Yes, yes.
To
Thank
actually,
you for making that sacrifice, Clive.
oh, well, I mean, I'll take one for the team.
Mhm.
So yeah, but you had to dig a little bit and specifically search. Oh yeah, there we go. And almost to a man, the actresses also were doing porn,
Maybe.
which is interesting because that's not necessarily like if you go
No,
a
because
bit
it is.
back into like pink film history and stuff, you had pink actresses, right, who didn't.
Yes.
They would have been
Sure.
horrified at the thought of doing unsimulated sex, right?
Right.
But yeah, I suppose at this point when you're getting into
Already it's getting
direct to video, yeah, you're
the
getting
lines are
into that.
getting blurrier. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and that's where you would find, I guess, more willing because I suppose on the one hand, well, I'm normally actually being fucked, so this simulated shit, this is nothing.
What's interesting is they're not bad actors.
No, 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 no,
Which,
no. They're not,
yeah, yeah. So
or
I
at,
mean,
or at least not any worse than you would see in a
yeah,
non-erotic
exactly.
video.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's okay. Interesting. But in some ways, this is one of the least interesting, I think, of the five. This is actually the first one. It's not, I don't think it's particularly strong coming out of the gate.
Oh,
I think episode two is a considerable step up in a lot
well,
of ways.
that's what I thought the first time because I went back and checked my reviews. But something about this, so I think this is the thing. I'm wondering if you felt the same with me, as me. The interesting thing about all these films, to a certain extent, is there's something about the other series as well also did the Sex Based on Campus series. The way to differentiate them is I remember Sex Based on Campus was the tentacles were a lot more cummy. Like they used a lot of like fluid and shit, whereas these
Right.
are quite dry tentacles in comparison. They didn't go out and buy a whole bunch of egg whites. So
KY jelly and the
yeah,
rest of it.
yeah. So it's a bit, but certainly this like when they actually do the tentacle scenes, right? So they have a man or a woman standing there doing the thing, and then there's some manipulated tentacles, and then they go in someone's mouth, and I mean they go everywhere, but that's the one they can show,
Yes.
right? That's the one they can show, and there's like someone down on their knees with like a tentacle cock in their mouth, and there's that stuff. When you actually see it live action, as kind of low budget as it is, there's something actually quite arresting about, oh, they've actually kind of pulled it off and it's not
Okay.
animated. And those are easily like throughout the whole series, every time that actually happened, it did stop me in my tracks, and I was like, that's. I mean, they've done, but everything around it is kind of, you know,
Mm.
but it was remarkable to me that I never every single time they did it, there's something just about the fact that they've actually pulled it off, they've done it.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? There's something oddly impressive about the fact that they actually did kind of do it.
Yeah, it's a reasonable job of replicating the experience of the
Yeah,
animated version. Yeah.
and as well the fact that because what annoys me a lot about some of the trashy low budget direct to video stuff out of Japan, which I should love, even if it's somewhat impoverished and they can't always pull it off. The thing that always really annoys me is they always try and paper over the cracks with like zany comedy.
Yes.
And people like overacting and all of that, right? And it totally doesn't work for me at all, or very rarely. What I appreciate about this series is they take it seriously. Like
Until the very last one. And
until the very last one, it starts to get a bit meta, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
But
surprising.
yes, the first four play they do play it.
Yeah,
very
and I like that. I appreciate that, because it lends itself in it. Because the thing is that they don't even like at no like it is obviously it's pervy. There's almost any excuse to look up someone's skirt or something, but it's still played like they don't. There's
Yes.
no nod and a wink.
No,
We're
it's
being
played for drama and it's played for
yeah,
horror.
yeah,
You know,
and that works for me at least. That works.
right.
I like my perviness to be clandestine. It kind of gives it a slightly extra
Mm.
charge.
Hmm.
So yeah, like you said earlier, the first one is the most where it seems as if they're trying to do something just totally original and not necessarily cribbed from anything else
Yeah.
specific. Excuse me. And, tentacle bit stuck.
Yes.
So the second,
It's the dry ones, Clive. You need the
I need the other series,
yeah, you need the other
yeah,
kind,
it go
yeah.
down a bit easier, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
so the
yeah,
second,
yeah, Angel of
yeah,
Darkness 2 is kind of Darkness by Dawn, right? This is the one where the Sam Raimi influence is worn on
yeah,
its sleeve. Right? This is the one
Dif-
it's
different. Also,
camping college students, right?
split between two directions. Also, different screenwriters. So the first one and um the no, the fourth one, Yuki Okano. So the guy who wrote this one, who also wrote the third one,
Hmm.
Jun Furusho, he's also the guy who wrote most of the Rape Man movies as well.
Oh, okay, yes.
Just to give
So
you a bit of context.
classy gentleman then.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so which is funny then because there's actually not much humor in these, whereas their stock and trade was kind of like,
Oddly enough, you say that though, but the Rape Man series is billed as like a comedy series, but actually the Rape Man series is played mostly pretty straight. And the comedy scenes that are in it, they're more of a like a they're not that wacky kind of they're
right. Okay.
gentle, and it's always the stuff in the school, right? It's between the teacher and the girls, and it's all very
Right.
what you'd see in like a
Mm,
drama about a school or something,
yes.
which is that's the thing with the rape. We might get to the rape
That's
series one day when we really want to torch
yeah.
your career after you've retired.
Mhm. Mm,
Is that's the weird thing about the Rape Man series, which I think should be more the fact that large parts of it play out like a television drama
mhm.
should I understand what they're doing. It should be more subversive, right? The fact that you put
Right.
rape action in the middle of something that plays like something you'd see on TV
Mhm.
should be more make it more subversive. But weirdly, it's just boring.
Right.
Anyway, we'll get to
Except
that
for Steve
one
Albini.
day.
Steve
Yeah,
Albini stuff. But yes, so this is the one that basically, yeah, there's lots of like that kind of like running around with the camera on a board to kind of create that Evil Dead, you know,
Evil Dead. Well, so each of the we're going to say 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to mention specific films it rips off. But to be
mhm.
fair, not entirely. It's more like
Yeah.
there's a scene. There'll be like one scene, and you know exactly where that comes from.
Yeah.
In this case, it's the camera going through the woods
Mhm.
and the campers going out of the campsite, and but then after that, it's not as if it sticks to that. It kind of does its own thing, but
Yeah.
it's almost as if it has to have some sort of starting point. It has to have like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, dwarves standing on the, yeah, dwarves standing on the shoulders of giants, I suppose, isn't it?
Right.
But it's
The I
so
mean the one
it's
thing
not
that
as if the whole thing plays out like Evil Dead.
no,
It's just
this one
early on
does
you think Evil Dead, and then it does its own thing, right?
right. This one introduces a concept that's in this one, and I guess it makes sense. The next one does feel like it's all one story, really. This one like directly connects into the third part. Um, because but like yeah, so this is the one that kind of also introduced the idea that it becomes more like the thing in that it can be passed like
Right.
from person to person, right? It kind of inhabits them, takes them over, and then they can give it to somebody else as a kind of almost like an STD, and then the
Yes.
next person becomes the tentacle monster for a while, and then it goes, and they kind of carry that through the next two or even three films.
Mm.
Um, and this is basically this all happens because uh, two of the like again we have a lesbian teacher and a student who kind
Yes.
of and they go off to have sex in a cave and then for some reason decide to drink cave pond water or something like that that's got like
Yeah.
stuff in, and then this is what gets the whatever these inju plant things inside the girl, and then yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a good idea doing that.
No, 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 don't. Yeah, don't drink
No.
cave pond water.
Um, yeah. I mean, yes, again, it's not great, but
It's
I know what you
sleazier.
mean.
The
It
second one is
tries more
sleazier.
ambitious. Yeah.
Yeah, the second one is it's also sleazier. There's definitely more nudity. There's definitely more
Yes.
like
Yes.
and violence too. They get bloodier as well as they go.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
um
Interesting casting wise. So again, when the main girl did AV, Rika Nanase, but also at the same time, a little bit later, she was one of the main villains in another Tokusatsu show, Gekiso Sentai Car Ranger. It's quite fascinating to me in the past few years since I've been getting
right
Tokusatsu, quite how many former either Pink or not even former, sometimes like at the same time.
time.
You can imagine like a dad going off by himself to the movies one afternoon, secretly coming home, and then blimey, the girls on the TV that I, you know, like
In
for
a kid
what's it,
keep it
even
going.
like quite high profile. Like what's her name? I'm blanking on her name. There was like a really famous kind of crossover porn star who was on normal television a lot, and yeah, she plays a villain in a Tokusatsu
Okay.
show.
Wow.
Yeah, a slightly sexy villain as well. Right? That's
Mhm.
the thing. They were so yeah. So Rika Nanase was on. I haven't got I haven't got to Car Ranger yet because it's Sentai.
Okay.
Is it a series you're familiar
No,
with?
no.
Okay. And also the male uh
Lead.
yes, was one of the Dengeki Sentai Changeman
Okay.
god as well. He
Hmm.
was like Kondo or something like that. Or
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And also, you'll be pleased to know, Nick, um,
Hmm.
that the yes, the lesbian student in question,
Hmm.
the one with the like a big jumper and yeah,
Hmm.
sure. You took a fancy to her, I think. This is Kanazawa Nana, and she also did do AV. So there you go.
Hmm.
There's your
Okay.
weekend
Good
sorted.
to know. Hmm.
Um, because you're a very open-minded fellow.
Of
On
course, yes.
to the third,
Hmm.
to Katsuna Hattori.
Yes.
Now what's this one? Oh yeah, this is the
This
Exorcist
is
one.
yes, this is the one where
Yeah,
William Peter Blatty
yeah.
features heavily in the DNA,
So this
especially
was
at the
a bit more this
on
like
the
yeah,
nose.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Or on the knob. Yes.
Right. So this is one that the final girl from the previous film gets taken back to Tokyo and put into a hospital, and then she's got the
That's Rika
uh,
Ananase of
yeah,
Sentai Car Ranger fame.
right.
Yes.
And then yeah, the thing gets out of her by taking over a nurse, and then this is the one that has the girl who eats rats in it, right? I seem to
The
remember.
teacher who eats rats. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And then
Yes.
there's this. This is the first one that yeah, it starts introducing Japanese Catholic priests, which is always a weird
Yeah,
thing to
yeah, yeah,
me.
yeah. This is the first time you see a crucifix repel the tentacle, right? And you're like, oh,
Hmm.
that's interesting. Why is this tentacle from a cave in Japan? Like, yeah, maybe it goes
Concerned.
back to maybe it's got something to do with you know, silence and endoscopy scare and
Hmm.
yeah. Maybe we need Scorsese to do his version of Injukyoshi,
Hmm.
right? With Liam Neeson, with lots of appendages coming out of him.
um, yeah, yeah. So yeah, this one's is yeah, priest is hunting down, trying to hunt down the Inju, and then it ends with yeah, there's a full on kind of Linda Blair impression at the end with
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. Minoru Sawatari, I think, plays the Exorcist. And then yeah, so again, interesting casting stuff. You've got Kanori Kadomatsu, aka Yuzuki Ryoka, who I think is the main female lead in this. Later went on to, she seems to have had a big career as an anime voice artist.
okay.
There's a magician in here, Takao
Hmm.
Koichi.
Okay.
He's a famous musician. and
Oh, sorry, I thought you said magician, musician. That makes
no, magician.
magician.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Top hat and all that.
Was
Yeah.
he the priest, maybe?
Oh no, that's Minoru
No.
Sabatari.
Okay, there we go.
And then Takako Kitagawa, who's one of the older women, she's in the 40s or something, and this is a former Nikatsuruman Porno star she was in.
Okay.
So it's I like when they do because again, unless you go deep, right, and you immerse yourself in this shit like I've been doing,
Mhm.
a lot of this stuff you would necessarily you wouldn't realize that there's like oh they're referencing they're having someone in the same way that,
Mhm.
as they do in you put Gunnar Hansen in your
Right.
film, then it's
It's a nod,
or
yeah.
Bruce Campbell or whatever. They are doing this. It's just we don't know who these people are,
These people are,
and even
yeah.
the majority of Japanese people don't know who these people are. Right? Like it speaks to
Right.
a very specific. Someone's noticing, someone's keeping notes, someone's getting the references. And the
Mhm.
sad thing is, I've now slipped into the camp of
Yes, you
one
are
of
that.
those people,
Mhm.
except, 30 years too late. Like
Right.
someone in real time knew what was going on.
You, yes,
Some
yeah.
super otaku person was like,
Mhm.
if they ever listen to this, they're like, this is old news, man. Yeah.
Yeah. You're
But
you're
yeah,
good.
again, I mean, the exorcisms again it's the tentacle stuff is but the rest of it is like I mean it is I mean oddly enough none of it's super atrociously boring,
No.
but it's just
Yeah.
you how long's
Yeah.
left. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. You're never really engaged in the narrative or in the, you
No,
know,
but
you
at
never
least it's
care.
not actively pushing you away with
Yes.
zaniness and like
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Um,
there's Exorcist, and they decided to stay with the Catholic
yep. But
uh,
now we're gonna go touch on the Omen.
omens. Yeah.
Yes. This one it's kind of interesting in some ways because this one does a few weird things that like this one has those strange flashbacks to the kind of like um serial murderer rapist character that maybe is her dad or whatever, and
Yes.
like that's all very weird and isn't really kind of explained until quite near the end. So you're like, what are these interpolated, or we say that word, like scenes of that maybe are set
Right.
in
And
the
they do that.
past?
Actually, they did this in the second one as well. They do that slightly stylish um, scenes in black and white, except the
Yes.
always in color thing. Right.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Obviously, somebody had watched Schindler's List recently, I guess, and was like, "Yes,
Yeah, there's a definite through line.
yes." Um,
And again,
so
that's again why we need to get Liam Neeson involved, right? Because yeah,
exactly, yeah.
if he can play
Uh,
Oscar Schindler, he can play Ota. He could. I bet he could do the list.
I bet he could actually. So this one, yeah, this one even has that. There's a scene that there's a nun in this one as well. There's a priest and nun
Yeah,
team
yeah,
trying to get,
yeah. It's
and then
always
she ends
good.
up
A
speared.
priest and nun crime fighting team is always a thing of great joy, I think.
Yes, but then she ends up like speared through the mouth by this giant pole, which is a very exorcisty kind of, or not
Yeah,
exorcist, sorry,
Omen.
omen kind
Yeah,
of a
again,
moment.
that's
Yeah,
I think that's where they started from, I think, and
yeah.
they were figuring out what can we rip off next, and then kind of. But again, that scene aside, it's not as if everything about the film's giving you Omen vibes, right?
No, no. It's funny actually. This one to me is of all of them, I felt there was a little bit more of the DNA of episode 3 of the cartoon series because that's also about a girl who's bullied at school and
Yes.
eventually kind of gets in touch with her evil side and
Yeah.
tries to, and in this case, we also have this kind of nanny figure, right? This like sexy nanny who moves into the house and is trying to like draw her apocalyptic demon out, basically,
Yeah,
right?
but it also helped me enjoy. I perked up just because I tend just into I quite fancied the lead girl more than most of them, Mitsuki
Mhm.
Shaw, and yeah, that teacher Yabuki Marina. Again, your weekend sorted, Nick. They both did
Mhm.
adult videos as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, you got plenty to be digging up.
Lots of grist for the mill, yes.
Yeah, I don't.
Um,
That is a rare euphemism for the penis, the mill. I'll be doubt mill. I might do that from now on, actually. When I'm warning the missus that I'm going to knock on, I'll be don't mill.
um, yeah. And then in some ways, I think the last one is the most interesting, partly because I feel like they're starting to almost um, make fun of the whole thing in some ways, and also because I
Yes.
do you think that maybe Cronenberg is is one of the pieces of this one? Is there a kind of like a Videodrome
Well,
element?
more than that, actually, I think I'm right in guessing because
Mhm.
there's that scene in the bathtub where rather than Freddy
Yes,
tentacle, I was thinking
right.
Nightmare on Elm Street. But
Yep.
specifically, isn't it Nightmare on Elm Street 3? Where
Hmm.
isn't that the one with the juvenile delinquents and they have like a class?
Right.
I think this is that, maybe.
Right, that's that,
That they
yeah.
all go to that
But
weird
I
class where
did
they
think
watch
that some
videos and they
I-
and they
the
start having sexual fantasies. Definitely the dream stuff, the fantasy section is definitely a pervy Elm Street, right? Is definitely.
right. Yes, yeah, no, I think you're right.
I mean, that stuff's fairly sexy in this as well, I have to admit. This might have been the sexiest of the films, just because
Right.
everyone's perpetually horny in this the whole
Right.
time, right? Like it's
But
not
it
just the
also
tentacle, everyone's horny in this one.
and they've really strayed well away from it's really unclear what the connection is to all the other films. Again, it's more like going back to the first one where you don't really understand is any of it real or is this or these like it's there's not this plant-based induce-based thing. It's like
Right, right. And yeah, no, you're quite right. By the time the brother character turns up imitating,
as Bruce Lee.
it's clearly they've gone off the rails at this point. They're like,
That and also the scene where the guy starts furiously humping the like vase or whatever in class, right? That also starts to get to the
oh yeah.
slightly risible and
Well,
hilarious.
actually, those
You
scenes
know?
would genuinely laugh at funny, though. I have to admit, the few scenes where suddenly someone realizes there's a kid knocking one out in class and everyone looks, that was actually quite funny. I did get a laugh out of that a couple of times.
Right.
It was quite funny. Especially when you couldn't
Um,
stop it. And what I liked about it as well was it quite realistic because he's there and all the girls are horrified, but all the other boys in class are like, ah!
um, but yeah, I did think this one was kind of like tentacle inception as well. Like there was a kind of an element of like there was dreams within dreams, and then um, but yes, anyway, I think in some ways it was more fun maybe because they were at this point just being like whatever, let's just
Yeah, I have to admit, I was a little bit after I'd suggested it and got all excited, and then I was like, oh fuck, I have to watch these again. I wasn't
right.
actually slightly trepidation because I sat through three of them before. I have to admit, actually watching them all in a row was kind of it was a little bit more interesting than I expected. Uh,
Mhm.
again, they're not good.
No,
They're in
no,
no
no.
way, shape, form, or good, and you know, even like so at some point you would just say to someone, look, if you just rent some porn, right? And I suppose the comeback would be, well, no, I want the tentacle. I say, well, guess fucking what, they've been even doing that for like
Mhm. Yes, yeah,
20 years now. Like,
yes, yeah,
again,
yeah.
you'd be surprised how
You
much hentai animes out there. You'd be surprised how many proper live action
mm,
hardcore films with actresses like using all sorts of weird mechanical prosthetics and stuff, and basically using them to fuck them in all the orifices is out
mhm.
there. Not that me and Nick would know anything about that, but we heard from a bloke down the street who we
Mm.
don't talk to because
Yeah, he's a fella at the mill.
we disapprove of him.
Um,
Occasionally we hear these horrible tidbits coming from his corner of the pub, right?
mhm.
And we just we we
It's
shun him.
revolting.
We shun him. Yes.
Um,
Make notes.
but but um, but yeah, you always do wonder about the utility
Yeah. Well, I
of
think the utility for
soft
these have
porn.
gone, right? Because like we said, you can actually see Hayakawa Serena, for example, doing that stuff.
Mhm.
I heard. But
Mhm.
that aside, now it's interesting now that that element of it has disappeared, more or less.
Mhm.
They're interesting, I suppose, time capsule
Curios,
in a way,
right?
right?
Yeah.
In fact, and they probably work better as that than spank material back in the day. Because I think when I first came across these three,
Mhm.
I think it. yeah, that stuff hadn't started. The proper stuff had. So yeah, it would have been more out of prurience than.
Right.
Obviously, I was a horror, but it was. I did think, whoa, there's a chance I could get my rocks off to this as well.
Mhm.
And I remember kind of being disappointed in them in that
As,
way.
as that way, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, as an utility even then. So yeah, I think in a way, even though their main function for existing has disappeared, they actually maybe hold up a bit
A bit
more
more interesting now, yeah.
as something you'd have in a museum.
Hmm.
Like not
Right.
actually that interesting to watch, but
Speaking of, have you ever been to that museum in Atami? The sex museum?
yes, yeah, yeah. It's very
Yeah.
small. It's a very small museum, but
Yeah, yeah, but
full.
it's an interesting place just because I remember being there and being surprised by the number of kids whose parents thought it was a good idea to
Yeah.
take them there.
Then again, I mean, you only have to go to that. You only have to go to that festival, the cock festival,
Yes, yes, down
and
the Cow's
there's
Yes.
girls walking around sucking
Hmm.
cock-shaped lollipops, and you're
Hmm.
like,
What is
I'm
going
going
on?
home. I'm going to cause some criminal things about to happen if I stay here. I better go and take my thoughts with me because this is no, but
You,
just
you might want to cut the end of this episode off for yourself, Clive, I suspect.
I think I'm too far gone now. I don't think anyone's surprised anymore. But no, no, but it's true though. All right, any women walking around walk
Yeah, yeah,
walking
yeah.
around sucking cocks, right? This is I don't think it's controversial to say
No, no, agreed.
sexual male looking at attractive young women sucking a cock is going to maybe have thoughts,
Brilliant
right?
thoughts. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
yes.
Um, so anyway, what have we learned from all of this, Clive? Is that oh yes, we've learned about plant
Going to
maintenance.
hell, I think is
Yes,
what
that, and we've
yes.
learned about yeah, taking care of your plants.
And
So
Alan, yeah. So basically, we're going to go to hell, but it'll be fine because in hell we'll seed some sort of beast thing, and then we shall return as appendages, which we've
yes,
always
yes.
wanted to be.
But unfortunately, our genes will be digitally mosaicked or scrambled. Um,
Ah, that's true.
yeah, because I assume North Korea is hell. I imagine that's where you go if you've led a really bad life, right? That's
Apologies to our
all
myriad
of our North Korean
viewers in
viewers.
North Korea.
Yes, yes.
Can you imagine if anyone in North Korea was watching this? They'd probably be glad to stay there, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I would think.
Not going out there. Look at these people.
All right. I think we should sign off here.
Yes.
Uh,
Before you say something you regret, Nick.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Toodaloo, take care, and retroactively, yeah, trigger warnings for this entire episode.
Yeah. Yeah. In case you're watching it backwards.
Yes, exactly.
In which case it's probably fine because it's here, like unless of course utterly benign like backmasking, utterly benign
Ah.
sentences now turn into cock in your mouth or something like that. Like, yeah.
Hmm.
I tell you, this show is educational.